Some of the criticism of the show is, why are we showing the world arranged marriages in this kind of like backward way of looking at it? I don't think it's backward, because I think arranged marriage has worked for millennia over there, and that's not necessarily backward. But because there's this racist sort of like, oh, anything that's Western is progressive and anything that's Eastern is regressive, right? And that becomes this internalized racism that a lot of us carry. But that said, I mean, do you feel like, what is your intent? Is your intent to just put a spotlight on it and go, this is the way it is in India?
It's just to hold a mirror up to where we are as a culture, and then let us sort it out, you know, in terms of the parts of it that we see reflected back and don't like and want to change.
Sure.
And the parts of it that we're like, you know what, like maybe there's some value to this.
Sure.
It's not for me or my one little show to like change or solve or even make something appear more progressive, you know, or different in any way, you know, than it actually is. It's just to hold up a mirror. And then we can, it's our job, you know, as a society and as the next generation, you know, who are now raising another generation, to decide what we want to do with that information, you know? So, and it's a very narrow slice, I'll say that again. Like it's, Seema's world and the world of Indian matchmaking is one aspect, one facet, one tiny sliver of 1.3 billion people around the world. So it's not meant to speak for everyone. It's not meant to reflect every experience. And trying to cram a lot of that in and check the diversity checkboxes even within the Indian diasporic and Indian experience would make the show feel inauthentic, you know?
Sure.
So I think, and in terms of like whether arranged marriage is or isn't, you know, progressive or where it is on that spectrum, I would say one, like how are we defining arranged marriage?
Sure.
You know, because that's the very institution, the very concept of it is very elastic. And I think you see that through Seema. Like when I was working with her as a client, she wouldn't even really talk to me. She would be talking to my parents. Now she has changed in 15 years. She has changed so much because she's a businesswoman and she needs to keep up with the times, and she's also capable of change, so she has changed a lot. She of course has a ways to go, and we all have a ways to go, but you know, now she deals more directly with the young person who's looking to get married, and like, what is the arrangement? It's like, she's like a, you know, human Tinder sometimes, you know, like, I think it's really like not getting locked into the semantics of what we think arranged marriage is and recognizing that it's sort of a broad spectrum.
Well, I think traditionally arranged marriage was where the person getting married didn't have much say, right? That was a traditional, like the parents are going to make the decision, and like to your point about elasticity, it has become to the point where two families might put two people in a room, and if they hit it off, it's ultimately up to the kids.
It's ultimately up to them, and I think you see on the show that you know, there's a lot of choice and a lot of agency, you know, for the people who are actually, you know, looking for their life partner. But I would also say, you know, because you mentioned like the ways in which we think about these things really kind of reflect maybe sometimes our internalized ideas about what's liberal and progressive. What do we think we're doing in the West? Do we think are we being totally progressive and open-minded when we go on Bumble or Tinder or Hinge, or are we also self-selecting according to some pre-ascribed criteria? Like if I go on a dating app, I'm gonna, you know, check the boxes of I want this height, I want this background, this education, this location.
Sure.
So we might trick ourselves into thinking
that we're
more
so liberated, but we still are.
Exactly.
You know, it's like when you had assigned seats in high school, and you're like, oh, I hate assigned seats. You go to college, you can sit anywhere, but by day 2, everybody sits in the same seat.
Exactly.
It's weird. You still, you have, oh, I can do whatever, and you still just do this one thing.
Exactly. It's human nature, and I think in a twisted way, what Seema is saying, what she gets the most criticism for, which is interpreted as like you should just settle, you know, for 60 or 70% of what you're looking for. I think what she's really trying to say is don't get hung up on a checklist, you know, like understand what your core level criteria are. Try to make that as much values based as possible, as opposed to like, you know, superficial things like, you know, height and blah, blah, blah. Like, and sometimes that value system comes from like, how is this, my family's really important to me, how is this person gonna integrate into my family, or vice versa? You know, that's like a reality for a lot of us. And then like have an open mind, you know? And that's a pretty progressive way to approach dating and relationships.